A few months ago, I read the first and my first Spider-Man comic. 38 issues, bizarre villains, and one strangely capitalist Peter Parker later, we have finally reached the end of Spidey's very first era. But of all the adjectives I have for the series, cozy, fever dream, weirdly conservative, great is not one of them. But so many of you lovely people have said that it's this issue, If This Be My Destiny, is when the series earns its legendary status. I don't care about how these issues felt 60 years ago, I care about how they read now. So let's see if this era holds up, why it ended so abruptly, and if it was ultimately worth the ride. Let's dive in to the end of an era. The first thing we are introduced to is a new villain, the Master Planner, but we don't actually see them until much later. Again, I'm still really vibing with this art, it's just so colorful it feels like candy. Spider-Man though is still his usual self. I can't just let them drown, even if they probably deserve to. I think one thing that is noticeably better in this is the B-plots. They're usually Peter's college adventures, and they never really feel useless. In this such B-plot, we meet familiar favorites Gwen Stacy, who looks timeless, and Harry Osborn, who is 18, going on 45. They really should have made James Franco dress up like this in the movies. They link up with Flash to form like the Mean Kids, but I'm still in shock that we met Betty, Liz, although I think Liz is MIA now, and Gwen all before Mary Jane. And Harry in particular is such a diva, he's hilarious. Somehow, Aunt May got sick again. Aunt May gets sick like every 5 issues, but I will say this is the definitive example of that plotline, so I'll let it slide. What I'm less forgiving of is, again, Spider-Man needs money, so he goes out to take pictures for JJJ, but here, it's so egregious. He straight up is mad that there isn't more crime. I was mostly over the money thing, but coupled with the sheer lack of content in this issue, I just don't know, nothing fucking happens. It's a C tier, right in the middle of the pack. The next issue picks up right where we left off and serves the second act role really well. Our first interesting development is an actual emotional scene when Peter learns that it was he who accidentally gave Aunt May radiation poisoning, and coupled with his supposed guilt over Uncle Ben's death, it kinda sends him spiraling. And they emphasize that Aunt May is deteriorating fast, so the sense of urgency is much greater, and it feels like for the first time there are actual stakes. And going back to the A and B plots discussion, Peter discovers a new chemical that could help Aunt May, only for the Master Planner to want for his radiation scheme, so he steals it first. It's a nice way to tie everything in, and it allows Spider-Man to rage through the city trying to find the cure. And it's not easy to do angry Spider-Man well, but here it's perfect. The writing too has gotten a lot better, like here when Aunt May's doctor is saying her fate is, quote, with a higher power now, having that double meeting with Spider-Man. But as Spider-Man finally finds the Master Planner's lair, they're revealed to be none other than our old nemesis, Dr. Octopus. Kind of. You see, I think Stan Lee and Steve Ditko are really good at coming up with these big ideas, but a consistent issue across this run is the element of timing. Doc Ock is revealed to be the Master Planner on page 1, with pretty much no real fanfare. Just imagine if after all this rage, Spider-Man is desperately trying to find out who this new mysterious villain is who took away the cure to Aunt May's illness, and it just would lead to these punchier moments that the series really struggles with. It really does not do a good job of turning up and down the heat to keep us engaged. I have some other minor problems, like in this college era, the Daily Bugle really loses a lot of its weight, and it just kind of feels like an afterthought compared to issues prior. Betty, likewise, is pretty brutally kicked out of the story, and I don't think it's the end for her character, but it does seem like the writers did not know what to do with her. But don't get me wrong, I really like this issue. It has a lot of just awesome stuff, like Doc Ock here in this fight getting genuinely scared of Spider-Man's rage, and it of course famously ends with Spider-Man trapped underneath this rubble. Doc Ock escapes, the henchmen are waiting for him, and most importantly, Aunt May's condition is worsening by the minute. It's a great cliffhanger to a fantastic issue. It absolutely belongs in S tier. And now we get to read one of the most famous Spider-Man issues of all time. This is really the first time Peter has both been humbled and really struggles. It's really great to read such a smaller scope. Spider-Man just kind of needs to escape this rubble, like that's the issue, and it's absolute fucking peak. This is the first time in the entire series that I was like, yeah, that's Spider-Man. And it might be cope, but that is some genuine character growth right there. This is the day Spider-Man changed. He fully internalizes his responsibility, he forms his core values, and the symbolic escape from the rubble is him emerging into his new self. The dialogue too is less wordy, more punchy, and really effective. This is the clear highlight of this series. It just feels so earned, and coupled with solid writing and the Tom Holland neuron activation, it's just mad solid. I really love this narration. It's unironically the best writing in the series. And when Peter finally emerges, he's so exhausted, and it feels like such a great showcase of his sheer determination and love for Aunt May. I love how slow the pacing is in this issue. It really works to make these challenges seem so daunting. I do have one major complaint. Betty Brant. Why they gotta be so cruel to her? It feels so unfair that now that Peter has gone through this huge character growth, but Betty both doesn't get that, nor gets to experience the new Peter. But it still can't take away that this is an absolute banger and the best issue we have read so far. S tier. And now Kraven's back. I love Kraven. He's just so gross. Like, he opens up the comic just beating the shit out of this wild lion for no reason. You're as popular here as Mao Zedong. What the fuck, man? Speaking of Mao, I'm sorry. That was honestly the best way I can think of to transition to the elephant in this run. And it's something I haven't really formulated an opinion on until now. Steve Ditko's politics. Steve Ditko is an objectivist, but without going too far into that, that's not the issue. Like, I don't really pick up on a lot of overt Ayn Rand type of messages. Instead, it really comes down to his just like sheer obsession with cops and the criminal justice system. I think to some extent, all superhero comics are by definition a critique on how we deal with crime, because if there was no flaw in our justice system, there'd be no need for superheroes and there wouldn't really be a story. But in Amazing Spider-Man, the cops are just so like ever present and overpowering. It's like playing with your action figures is like the core story, and the cops are like, you know, your mom or dad coming in to make you go for dinner. It's just like a rude awakening that takes you out of the story. Love you, mom and dad. I would say it's broadly an issue with authority. Like, the judges here are just so like stone cold, and there's really rarely anything below the surface. But it's fine, I can enjoy it. I put up with a lot of shit for this series, but what tipped me over the edge is this scene. Peter is walking to class when he's interrupted by these protesters, and they're not protesting anything in particular. I think it's implied it could be the Vietnam War, but it's clearly meant to be like they're just protesting because they want to protest something. And Peter just lashes out of them for basically no reason, and I say this very intentionally. This is the most cringe scene in the entire series so far. It is so hilariously out of left field. It activated my Winter Soldier button with all these minor cop shit in these other issues to honestly stain this entire run way more than I anticipated. Anyways, sorry for that tangent. Now let's get back to evil Steve Irwin. Nothing infuriates me as much as bad grammar. Damn it, even the jokes aren't funny now. It's a pretty mid-fight, whereas last time Kraven had all these weird gadgets to catch Spider-Man, here it's just like button mashing. Also, downgrading the mid to bad because they fire Betty off page? D tier. And now, like, we get more Molten Man, and I just really thought that after It Will Be My Destiny, something would really change, you know, but this is pretty much business as usual. I really reject the idea that this style is, like, objectively worse. Like, you do spend a lot more time on a page here than a modern comic, but it should in turn make you feel more immersed. But here, there's just so much wasted space. My hypothesis is this is really when the beef with Stan and Steve was at its worst, since there are a lot of elements that just get really bad all of a sudden. Like, the quips here are just insufferable. Obligatory cops are way too important in this issue. It's just another D tier, I don't know. And now we get some OC for the first time in a long while. This is just a boring issue. College Peter is such a fucking dick. The Meteor, likewise, is nothing special. And they make Gwen so obsessed with Peter for no reason. She's written pretty terribly so far. The only part that brought me joy is when Spider-Man defeats Meteor Man and then unmasks him and he's like, "Ooh, you're so ugly." F tier. And you know what? I'm moving Molten Man back to F2. The quality is just like falling off a cliff. Like, Once Upon a Time There Was a Robot has got to be the worst subtitle for any issue so far. Like, there are less cute fourth wall breaks, there's no more friendly banter between the creators. It just feels like they were forced to do this. And I hate it. I hate it that all of these issues start with the villain getting released from prison. The recidivism rate must be just like fucking abysmal in this city. And Peter, specifically specifically in college, is really insufferable. And I know I said it before, I need you to take me seriously. I mean it this time. He's like, Gwen, you're such a little shit. You're emotional, you're not drawn very well. And then like 2 seconds later, she's like understandably angry. And he's like, girl, chill, why are you so mad? Anyone ever tell you you're gorgeous when you're angry? Blech! F tier again. And now we finally come to the very last issue of Steve Ditko's run. And it's fucking boring as shit. I think there were kernels of a good story here, but the execution is just really sloppy. The only interesting thing that happens is Norman Osborn is introduced, and he is already up to something, which really makes me wonder, like, legitimately, when did they know he was going to be Green Goblin? Because Green Goblin obviously shows up way before even Harry shows up, which is way before Norman even shows up, so it just kind of makes me think. Despite all of this, I still really like the art. I don't know, just look at this color. And as we draw to a close, Ditko fades away like he wrote, mostly mid, C tier. I'm gonna do a compilation of the Ditko videos eventually and give some more thoughts later down the line. I just don't really feel very clear-headed after this kind of wave of pretty mediocre issues. But what's this? We still have 2 issues left in the volume, so I am getting my very first taste of John Romita Sr., who I think must be the dad of the guy who drew Man Without Fear. I want to cover Romita more later on, so let's call this a sneak peek. One of the main things I know is different is his art style, mainly around Green Goblin. And I gotta say, I like it, not necessarily better or worse, just different. I know because of the Marvel method, the minute-to-minute writing is mostly Romita, and you can already see there's a lot more subtext. Like for example, here Gobby is like, had I not been so overconfident, I would have won, and then immediately says, then my victory is a foregone conclusion. And it's just like this little subtle irony is just something that I would never have seen before. And instantly, Romita gives Harry some much-needed characterization, basically about him being a disappointment to his father. Even little bits like the narration are just much better, like this tongue twister right here. A sinisterly smirking spectator slyly spies upon the startled Spider-Man. So Green Goblin sees Peter without his mask, and we already have higher stakes than almost anything prior. And it's low-key a big deal, like this is a serious existential threat. And you can see this in Peter's expression. It's really cool not to have his face covered once in a while. I love that Peter is truly off guard here, like he really has to think on the fly without his suit, and it's finally a new spin on the same action we've gotten for 38 issues. And there's more panel diversity, yay! And the art is so good, not because of the designs necessarily, but just like seeing Peter wench in pain is such a great visual to show how dire the situation is that we usually don't get. And very ironic given my complaint about the Doc Ock reveal from before, having the final panel of the issue be Norman revealing himself must have been so cool. If I had not known that from the movies, I'd be blown away. I'm not afraid to say it, guys, that was my favorite issue so far. S tier. And now for the first time in a hot second, I turn the page and I'm genuinely hyped. Now yes, this has the horrible trope of the villain expositing his whole plan and backstory, but just please let me have this. Green Goblin, for me, and I really think objectively, is the most compelling and multifaceted villain we have seen so far. And you can see this mainly when Peter mentions Harry, who's his classmate and Norman's son. It's basically the cat's in the cradle, but Harry and Norman's relationship is a genuine one. It's built up, explained, and understandable. We get some good absurdist humor too, like Norman is like, I've discovered all these chemicals, so of course now I can be the best costume criminal and I'll make me my favorite color, green! Betty comes back briefly and she gets like an actual character moment. The pacing is hurt by this very lame and pretty long compilation of all of Green Goblin and Spider-Man's past fights, but their fight in this issue is by far the best. I mean, look at these pretty colors. Now, it is hilarious that the amnesia Harry gets in Spider-Man 3 is basically what happens to Norman here, but the issue has just been that good, and I don't mind. I don't really think there's anything they can do that will stop me from enjoying the stellar... Oh, fuck it, it's still an S tier. I definitely think I have a bit of a horseshoe relationship with this series. I started out despising it, I learned to love it, and now that I've gotten a taste of Romita, well, I'll keep it positive and say that I'm really excited to come back to the series down the line. In the meantime, I'd love to hear what heroes or stories you think I should read with fresh eyes. I hope to see you in the comments. I try to reply to every single one, and it's how I determine what videos to make. Next time, I am finally starting X-Men with God Loves, Man Kills, but the Epic Collection, so it might take me a hot second, so if you want to make sure that you don't miss it, come on board and subscribe. As for Spider-Man, this is by far the best volume, and if not for some Ditko propaganda, it would be dangerously high on the list. I think a good compromise for Spider-Man issues 30 through 40 is a 6 out of 10, but those last two for Romita really did get me excited for what's to come, but I do anticipate a pretty lengthy 60s Spider-Man break. I hope you're as excited as I am for what's to come on the channel. In the meantime, have a good one. Peace.